All right, here we go.
Okay.
You ready?
Yep.
All right.
Welcome to This Life Matters. This is Gigi.
And this is Drew. How are you today, Gigi?
Better than you, but
Yes, a
I'm
lot
doing
better than me.
good. And it's a great day here in Tulsa, Oklahoma. We're at the Tulsa Community College Center for Creativity in the radio studio.
All right, all right. So today we've got a pretty good topic to talk about today.
Yeah.
But before we get into today's topic, how have you been?
Well,
I feel like even though we were together last week, I still feel like, I want to ask you how you've been.
okay. I'm doing really well. Who couldn't be doing well if you've been on vacation?
Where'd you go?
Well, we were in New York City
We
for
got to get our
5
lives
days.
together, don't we? We keep
Yeah,
moving
really,
around.
really. We were in New York City for 5 days, and then
Yeah.
we went to Maine for where we used to live up on an island and almost to Canada for a week, staying with some friends and looking at the scenery up there, and had a great time. Came back very relaxed, and then went, balls to the walls, as they say.
Is that an...
You don't
Yeah.
like that?
Yeah.
Should I have not said that?
I don't know. I used to do some things for a living, and I don't know. That
Okay.
phrase brings me back to a bad place.
Oh, I'm sorry. Well,
But-
I got really busy at work. How about that?
Yes, that's a
Okay.
good way of putting it.
Okay. And how about yourself? I know that you competed in a run.
Yes, I completed the Tulsa Run 15K.
That's a half marathon, right?
No, not quite. Half
Okay.
marathon would be 4 more miles.
Oh.
I say it's a quarter. It's a little bit more than a quarter, but
Okay.
But it's 9 miles, 9.3, I guess. So it's 9 miles, and
Okay.
it's a fun marathon. I mean, it's a fun race. Like
Mhm.
it's a lot of a lot of hills involved. But overall, it was good. And in my practice sessions, I was averaging, or I'd averaged in a practice session where I went the full distance. And with the other smaller sessions, I was thinking I was going to finish somewhere around 121. But just my body wasn't up to it that day. I
Mhm.
took the flu shot the week before, and had been kind of sick a little bit.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
but I went out there and competed anyway, and had fun with it. It was a fun race.
That's the first time you've
Yeah.
done that length of a race, isn't it?
In a race, in an actual race,
Yeah.
outside of just
Yeah.
practice or or just running,
Yeah. Yeah.
One of the really cool parts about that race that I want to say real quick is that one of the guys at the mission decided to sign up and do it with me. And he's a real fast young man and in shape and everything, and he decided to just do it with me,
Uh-huh.
just with
Uh-huh.
me. And so he stayed with me the whole entire race.
To support you.
Yeah, just to support me. So
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty cool.
It'd be
Like,
nice if everybody in our lives supported us like that.
yeah, it would. It definitely would.
If you're
So-
not, you'll know who we mean by this. If you're not supporting us or people in your life, huh?
So
Oh, I'm going to get in trouble today.
Yeah.
I can tell I'm going to
Yes.
get in trouble. Yeah.
So yeah, that I've been doing good in that regard. So
Good.
what about today's show?
Well, today's show, we're going to talk a little bit about our society and where we are in that, as far as discipline at school and with our children. And, you take it from here.
Yeah. Well, one of the things that kind of stimulated what we want to talk about today, as far as I want to ask a general question, and I'm definitely looking forward to your comments on Facebook or Twitter or however you're hearing the show. You can even comment on SoundCloud. Is that is it ever okay to discipline children physically? And the reason why I'm asking that question, and it kind of stems from what happened at Spring Valley this past week, where the officer comes into the classroom and he has to remove the young lady from the classroom because she refused, and it got pretty physical, where he ended up pulling her out the chair and what appeared to be where he kind of tossed her across the room and ripping her out of the chair. And so that was one of those more gruesome things to see, because you don't really want to see a little girl get tossed across the floor, by a man of that size, or by anyone.
Anyway.
But also there was another video that you could look at. There was a school teacher forcing a young lady into the pool who refused to swim. And so it got me to thinking, and then there's so many other times where we've heard about individuals coming in to daycare centers, especially home daycare centers, but all daycares, and hearing the horror stories of, the people in charge of the kids disciplining them with switches or belts or different things of that nature. And so it kind of got me thinking, okay, what are we comfortable with? Because, and where are we going as a society with, with the discipline in our children? And so the question I have for you is, in today's day and age, is it okay to physically discipline someone else's child?
No.
Okay.
Well, that's my take.
That's your take. Hey, there's this stigma. And the reason why I ask you this question, because there's always been this stigma that down through the years that I've heard people say little things like, well, when I got in trouble in my day, the guy down the street would whoop me, and then my mom would whoop me, and then my father would, would get me.
Yeah.
And it was this, it takes a village type attitude to corporal punishment, or like, my teacher is going to get me, then, if the neighbor heard about it, they're going to get me. That's not where we are in society, anywhere close to that at all.
No.
I'm just wondering, was it ever really actually like that, though? At any point that you know of?
I think, yeah, a lot of people say I got spanked at home, but it was worse at school, but it was worse when I got home.
Yeah. I just think so many things have gotten exaggerated down through the years that it leaves the next generation with this expectation that that's the solution, that they should whoop their children because that's what the generation before did.
Them did, and they said, well, that's what, my parents did. So I don't think that's a good option myself. I don't think that any kind of violence is a good option. I think that's a bad message to send to children. And, in my office, people come in and, they're going to be, they talk about instances like this.
Yeah.
Not just physical trauma, but emotional trauma as well.
So, is using the word violence, is that if you were to pop a kid's hand, like spank a kid's hand who was trying to reach for a light plug or something like that, is that considered violence? This is a rare thing, because I've never actually had a time where I left you froze for a second. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, where do we draw the line between what's violence and what's a discipline?
I think I think the kind of violence you're talking about is a more emotionally based act on a frustration level that then becomes discipline. I don't think violence or hitting and spanking, personally, I don't see that as discipline. I see that as a punishment. And I also see that as the adult who's doing that has lost control.
Okay.
If there's a safety issue, then of course you're going to grab a child and get their hand. I don't know that swatting their hand actually is going to do anything.
Okay.
But I think grabbing the hand and, taking them away, I mean, we have to protect children. Well, there should have been some plugs and that stuff covered up. I mean, there's ways that we do that, But, I mean, this is a very difficult question.
Yeah.
But I generally think if it's an adult, okay, for instance, that security officer. Let's just talk about that, because I didn't see the video clip of the pool business.
Okay.
That one makes me sick, actually, to even think about that, because that is so opposite of anything that should ever happen to a child, be thrown into water at a pool because they are in swimming lessons and they don't want to get in the pool. I mean, that would be the complete opposite of the way that you would teach a child not to be afraid of the water. So I don't get that at all. That really would scar a child, I think. But the security officer thing, where he came in, and you probably had to see the whole video. Yeah. There was probably some lead up to that shouldn't have happened, which I think I might have read about or heard something about the fact that there could have been many options to handle that situation. That should have never happened.
And from even the students who were at the school, from their vantage point, there's a small group of students at that school who orchestrated a walkout on Friday because they want the officer reinstated. They want him to get his job back because
Oh.
they feel like that it really was her lack of discipline and that she was a distraction and
Well,
she
she
was given
probably
multiple
was.
chances to get out of the classroom.
Uh-huh.
It brings
She
it.
was on her cell phone, wasn't she?
Yeah, she was accused of being on her cell phone, and
Yeah.
she felt as though it wasn't, that the punishment that the teacher was trying to give her wasn't justified.
Uh-huh.
From the way the story is told from her friend's vantage point was that she simply was just looking at it and not using the phone, but just looked at it and got caught in that moment and didn't want to deal with the consequences because she felt as though it wasn't justified. Giving up her phone wasn't
I
justified.
personally don't think cell phones should be in the classroom.
Right.
So, right there, I mean, it's a setup for failure.
Yeah.
It totally is a setup for failure.
I think it kind of boils in that particular situation. It does boil down to, as everyone has gotten to talk about this particular subject, she was wrong in the sense that, and I think every adult knows that the young lady was wrong.
Yeah.
And everyone has said, but regardless of how wrong she was, at no point should have it escalated to that point.
Oh, that's absolutely true.
And no matter how many times I try to review this, I actually find myself in agreement.
Mm-hmm.
I don't see a scenario where it was okay. And I think about even myself, like at my job, where I've had situations where grown men, I've asked to leave, and they would not leave. And I still handled it better than him
Uh-huh.
with grown men who were an actual threat to my life. And I was able to still find ways to get those men out of the building
Mm-hmm.
and in a respectful way to them.
Mm-hmm.
I've had violent situations at my job on multiple occasions and still was able to actually, use physical, use force, but do it in a dignified manner
Mhm.
where I've been able to wrap someone up
Yeah.
and, pick them up and remove them, but safely,
Yes.
you know.
Well, in that situation, at that school classroom that we were talking about, it's not like the person had a weapon
Right.
and was threatening anyone. I can't see that behavior from any security guard happening if someone didn't have a weapon and they were threatening someone with it.
Yeah.
It would have been better in that. I mean, there were so many options, but just leave her alone and